What's up, nerds? It's Anthony the Amaze, and I gotta say, today is a good day. I'm so glad that you're here joining me for this video. And first, I want to give a big shout out to you. Thanks for helping this channel reach 10,000 subs. I know it's not a lot, but it's a big deal for me. Thank you so much for your support and for your encouragement and for the comments and likes and shares and all of that. Like, we wouldn't be here without you putting in the work and spending the time watching. I hope that this channel has helped you in your tech journey. I hope that it's helped you to do better in interviews, but we're just getting started and there's a long way to go. So thank you for joining me so far on this journey. I appreciate it. And hey, let me know how I can be doing better. I look for that. Today, I want to talk about something very, very special. I have been plugging away for the past month on a thing that I'm really excited about, and I really want to share it with you. But first, let's talk about motivations. Now, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I absolutely hate LeetCode grinding. And when I say that I hate LeetCode grinding, that doesn't mean that I don't like LeetCode. Everybody uses LeetCode. Like, it's great. It's a perfect platform for what it is. And what it is a question bank. That's what it is. It's a question bank where you can go and find questions that you can use to prepare for tech interviews at FAANG companies and non-FAANG companies alike. So LeetCode is great for that. It's a question bank with a debugger built in. And that's fine. That's fantastic. Like, we use it. It's great. But just doing LeetCode alone doesn't get you ready for the interview completely. You can do as many problems as you want, but if your problem-solving process is busted, it's not going to help you that much. You're just using bad technique and bad form to go tackle problems that at the end of the day don't help you understand the material any better. I know that many of you have commented to me about, the importance of memorizing problems and how you have to grind to a certain extent. And I don't disagree with you. Like, yeah, some amount of LeetCode grinding makes sense, right? Where you're just going through problems and memorizing some of them because they're common enough that they help you, I think, memorize like the approach and the pattern. I've always said, study the patterns, not the problems. And what I mean by that is you should make sure that you understand the common patterns, whether that be binary search, whether that be using certain kinds of data structures, whether that be using tortoise and hare pointers for linked lists. There's a lot of patterns. I won't go into those here, but you should be focusing on the patterns, not the problems. Now, if you've seen my previous video on the 6-step problem solving process, I talk about the importance of problem solving and how you need to have a good, robust, repeatable, reliable strategy that helps you to do well on coding problems. So it's not just enough to know the kinds of problems that you're going to face or to know algorithms and data structures. You also need a good problem solving process. And that for a long time has been what's been lacking in the industry, and especially on platforms like HackerRank, LeetCode, and others, is they give you problems that you can practice ad nauseum, but they don't teach you how to problem solve well, or it's not really built into the philosophy of the tooling. And I decided I wanted to fix that. So what's better than LeetCode grinding? I think I have the answer, and it's called Mockrr. Mockrr is an AI-powered interview prep tool that I designed to help you get better at problem solving. What's great about this tool, in my opinion, is that it doesn't just throw you into a code editor like other tools do, but it really makes you go through each step of the problem solving process bit by bit so that you can focus on making sure that you are learning good problem comprehension, that you're brainstorming, coming up with test cases, thinking about edge cases, and working through each part of the problem solving process step by step. And I think that this can be a game changer, especially for those of us who don't have a lot of experience doing coding interviews. I've said countless times that the best way to prepare is with another human being, but in case you don't have someone to practice with, this is a great stand-in tool as you are getting better at the mechanics of good problem solving. So if you want to try this tool out, visit mockrr.ai. That's mockrr.ai. This app is ready to try out today. And if you want to give it a shot, just join the waitlist, provide your information, and I'll let you in as soon as I can. All right, so let's walk through these features. All right, the most important feature that I need to talk about is light and dark mode, obviously, because what kind of developer tool would this be if we didn't support light and dark mode? I mean, y'all know what rules, right? Come on, bruh. We're going to use the to-sum problem just as a simple one. It's an easy question, but it really allows us to focus on the problem-solving process. Now, one of the things you'll notice as you open this up is there isn't a code editor, or at least not right away. And that's because this app is designed to really make you go through good problem solving processes and techniques, and to practice things that you should be doing anytime you're in a coding interview. And so there's a note editor where you can take notes on things as you learn more about the problem that you're solving. There's even a webcam feature so that if you want to mimic being in a real virtual interview, you can do that. And you know, for some people that really want to mimic a more realistic experience, I think that this is something that could be a game changer for you. This app isn't actually recording or keeping a recording available for you to review later. If that's something that you'd be interested in, let me know. But the whole philosophy behind this app is to give you more realistic conditions for controlling how you are practicing problems, so that you're practicing things that you're going to need for the real interview with the human being. And that's really the key, is that these features are designed to help you practice the things that you would need to do if you were talking to another human being. It's just that we're using AI as a stand-in. Along the top, you can see that there's the 6-step problem solving process. This app walks you through each one of those steps until you get to the end to make sure that you're following good practices. And this is basically designed as a wizard. So you do each step at a time and then move on to the next thing. One of the other things that you'll notice is that there's a timer, and anytime that you start a session, we automatically click on the timer so that we can record how long it's taking you to get through each step. And this can be very useful information, because we know that we only have 45 minutes to an hour to do any kind of interview question. And it is useful for us to know for each step how much time we're spending gathering requirements versus doing implementation versus testing. So I thought it's pretty neat that I thought it'd be pretty neat to have a timer so that you could get a sense for how you're interacting with each stage of the problem solving process over time. And you can pause the timer if you don't want to keep it running, because sometimes you're practicing and you don't necessarily care about how long it's taking you to do each step. You just want to care about what that you're getting through it. Also notice that you don't see a written problem statement right away. And you'll know that in a previous video, I talked about how in many tech interviews, you may not get a written prompt right away. The interviewer is going to want to have a conversation with you and talk through the problem that needs to be solved to see if you're able to listen, to see if you're able to take good notes and stuff like that. And it's not that you'll never see a problem statement. It's just that you shouldn't count on getting that or having one provided to you. You should train yourself to listen well to what's being stated and then take your own notes. You can choose a voice that you want to use, and that voice will persist throughout your session. And for different problems, you can choose different voices depending upon what you're going for. First, you start out just by listening to the problem statement. So here's what that sounds like.
Given an array of integers nums and an integer target, return the indices of the two numbers such that they add up to target. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice.
So I can listen to that as many times as I need to make sure that I understand the problem, but really I probably wouldn't want to listen to it more than twice to make sure that I'm spending time internalizing the problem and then going on. And in the next step, I can just provide an articulation of the problem statement as best as I understand it. So I'll just start typing something here. Array that add up to some target to the value. Okay, cool. Now, obviously I could record a response and just use the microphone. Maybe I can give that a shot. But in the meantime, suffice to say, I can do that. Now, when I click submit response, what the system is going to do is it's going to validate that the way that I've articulated the problem matches up with the way that it was stated. And you can see that I got a 90% here. It's going to give me feedback on how well my paraphrase has accurately captured what the problem is reflecting. And this is important because it allows me to check whether my understanding of the problem matches the way that the problem was initially stated. And if there's something that I left out, then I can go correct that. So I think that's pretty huge and a really useful tool for making sure that you have good problem understanding. After that, I need to ask questions. And we've talked about in a previous video the importance of asking good questions. And I think that is really great to be able to come in here and come up with some of those things. If I want to hear the problem statement again, I can easily listen to it or read it again. Again, it's hidden by default so that you really are relying more on notes that you've taken or on the work that you've done to really understand the problem yourself. So what are some questions that we can ask? Can I assume that the type of the output will be an integer? seems like a simple enough question. And the system tells me, yes, the output will be, actually, it will be an array of integers. So that's a really important correction, right? If I thought that I was just returning one number, then maybe because I just didn't understand all the things correctly, the system is giving me useful information. So I can just, return an array of integers. Okay, so that's a really important clarification. Is there a size limit to the number of, to the size of the array? Okay, cool. So I don't need to, there is no explicit size limit, so I guess I'm just gonna tackle as many as I can. And just for giggles, we'll just ask if, can I reuse a value twice? And I already know from the problem statement that I can't do this, but we'll just make sure that the AI, right, okay, so the system knows that I can't use the same element twice. So this is important. Of course, I can continue to add other questions, but we'll move on. The point of this is that I'm collecting useful information that will help me to come up with a good solution for the problem later on. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I'd want to do in a real interview as I'm working with someone to get to a solution. Of course, step 3 of the problem solving process is to use examples. So I should be thinking about inputs and outputs. I'm going to come up with a bad example just straight away. So let's say that I get 1, 2, 3, 4, and the target is 6. And I'm going to say that indices 0 and 2 are the value. So obviously 1 and 3 don't add up to 6. And if I add this test case, I can validate to see whether or not this test case is valid for the problem. And this is great because if the test case is wrong, I want the system to tell me that it's wrong so that I can come up with a better example. And it tells me not only that it's wrong, but it tells me why, which I think is super, super great. This is information, again, that I can take into other parts of the process. Each of these steps are about me making sure that I have a good apprehension of the problem and its constraints and all that stuff. All right, let's actually do a legitimate example just to round this out. So if I do 2, 3, 3, and 8, the target, and again, we'll just keep it at 6, the example should be 1 and 2. So 3 plus 3 equals 6. That's easy enough. This one should validate correctly. And it does. And let's take that same example and try to violate one of the constraints again. So instead of choosing 3s at different indices, I'm going to choose the same 3 at index 1 and see if that reports it. All right, so yes, 3 plus 3 equals 6, but I need to pick indices at 2 different positions. So if I validate this, this shouldn't work. Or hopefully it doesn't work. All right, and correct, it is invalid. So this is great. Like, I have useful feedback that helps me to determine what's valid, what's not valid, and shapes my understanding. So this is great. Let's move on. Now we're looking at brainstorming, and there's obviously a couple of ways that we could solve this problem. This is a well-known problem, so I won't get into the gory details around that. What's key about this is you can give your solution something of a title, and I'll just say sort and scan. And for this approach, what I could do is so I could sort all the elements and scan from either end of the array using 2 pointers to find values that sum up to the target. All right. One of the things that's important when you're brainstorming is you should know the time and space complexity for the solution that you're proposing. So even before you write code, you should have a good sense of what the time and space complexity is going to be. So for this solution, we're going to do a sort that's probably going to be at least n log n for the sort, and then I'm scanning. So I'm actually going to choose n log n. Now, this doesn't validate whether the solution is valid or not, but I could look to adding that as a feature if that's something that you're interested in. So make sure to drop a comment and let me know if there's a feature that you'd like to see. I'll add one more idea, which is the hash map approach. I like keeping the title short, and this is something that if I were doing a whiteboard interview, I would write this on the whiteboard. If I were doing a coding interview, I would just write this in the notes, right? So I would literally write it like this. sort and scan, and then the other would be the hash map approach. So I could keep those on the side, or I could just leave them here. So in this case, use a hash map to keep track of each value and its index as I scan through the array. Find a number in the hash map that complements the current value and sums up to the target. Okay. If found, return the found index and the current index. Using a hash map, that means that I just scan through the array one time. That's going to be linear. I'm going to end up using big O of in space, and yeah, we're good to go. Now I realized just now that I made a mistake on the analysis of the sort and scan feature. If I do an in-place sort, then that doesn't use any additional space. That's just going to be constant time. So it would be great if the system would validate that for you. I think I'm going to build that. Stay tuned. At this point, I can't move forward until I actually select one of the solutions. And I think that this step is important because when you're brainstorming, you should get buy-in from your interviewer before you move forward. And it's important for you to be clear about what solution you're going to tackle and to focus on that one. I'm going to choose the more optimal approach of using the hash map and get that started. All right, so now that we're at step 5, now I can actually start writing code because this is the appropriate time to start working on implementation. Again, when you're doing coding interviews, you don't want to just immediately jump into writing code. That's usually the wrong thing to do. Instead, what you want to do is make sure that you understand your problem well enough, make some proposals about what to do, and then jump into a solution. So let's see if I can bang this out. I've done this problem enough that I pretty much have the code down by heart, but still, now that I've got this implementation, it's important for me to go back through and to check that it's doing what I want it to do. So let me just give this a quick scan. The function name isn't great. I should maybe call this toSum. Yep, so I'll call it toSum. That's cool. Yep. Use a map, have this all declared. All right, so I think that this is pretty good. And at this point, I can choose to validate the solution to make sure that what I have written lines up. Now, notice that this isn't a debugger. I can't go through and like run automated test cases, or I can't just press play to watch it work. That is by design. In many of the real interviews you're gonna have, you're not gonna get a debugger. You are the debugger. You do have the option to validate the solution, and the system will tell you if your solution is on the right track or not. And as you can see, I got 85% here because there's a mistake in the code and I don't actually know where it is. But what's great is instead of just telling you how to fix it, it will present some test cases that will help you to debug this for yourself. So instead of just looking at that, I can go through a test case and just see like what the expected output should be and what the output is. And so if I just read over this a little bit, I see that I use the assignment operator instead of the double equals. So that's the bug. Yeah, so I didn't actually mean to do that. I meant to make that a minus sign. So I still think the system gave me a little bit too much information there, but it's still good, right? Like I can read that and make sure that I understand the bug and then make the appropriate change. So now if I validate the solution, hopefully this passes. And it does. All right, cool. So I have a working solution. It looks good. I can move on. And at this point, I've got it. I can choose to go back and implement any of the other brainstorm solutions that I have if I think that there's a better way that I can do this, or I can just go ahead and finish out the session, which is what I'll do. And great, I'm done. What's great about this is the system will tell me like some tangible things that I can do to maybe get better, and then also give me a summary of what I've done so far. And I really like that. As you can see, I get a summary report that tells me just how I did and offers some small suggestions on things that I can do to improve the next time I go through a problem like this. There's a detailed report that shows me all the different questions that I asked and all the test cases that I presented and all that stuff, which is useful for helping me to understand how well I did on each step. There's also a quick summary that shows me how much time I spent on each step and how much time I took for the problem overall. Again, I don't have to keep the timer running, but it is useful for me to understand like how I'm spending time on each step of the problem solving process. And when you're done with the problem, you get a nice little celebration, just an attaboy and a pat on the back. But that's not all. I spent a lot of time when I was preparing for the Google interview just finding good questions. And of course, that means scouring LeetCode or looking on HackerRank or looking in forums for questions that would be interesting. But I thought that it'd be really cool to have AI generate problems for me based upon the kinds of problem that I want to solve and the level of difficulty. And so I built this little editor that allows you to pick the difficulty of the question that you want, that's focus topic that you want to be studying on. So maybe you want to specifically be looking at patterns around math and geometry, or maybe you specifically are tackling the area of heaps and priority queues. You can pick the topic that's interesting to you and then also provide a little feedback. And so for instance, I'm a front-end engineer. I have been for a long time, and I thought it'd be cool to find front-end focused problems. I'd like something that would be realistic for a front-end engineer. And when I hit the generate problem button, it will actually go and generate a code and problem for me that I can then use to start a new problem solving session, which I think is awesome. Now, this is pretty, well, I guess I should expect that. It just asked me to write the function in JavaScript. Way to go. Really appreciate that one. So there's a lot of things that I can do with this app, but I want to hear from you. How can I improve this? Are there features that you would love to see? Would you like to try this out? If you want early access to this tool, just visit Mockrr.ai. That's Mockrr.ai. Sign up for the waitlist, and soon enough, you'll be able to try this out yourself. One more thing. If you happen to find a bug, you can always just click the feedback button and just provide information and feedback that will help me to troubleshoot this. You can also suggest a feature if you want, and I'll consider putting it in. This has been a lot of fun to work on, and it's also been a lot of work, but I'm looking forward to releasing this to the world, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed building it. All right, y'all, I gotta go because I'm packing up for Render ATL, but when you see me, dap me up. Peace. 10K, y'all. 10K. There we are. We at 10K.